Reincarnation. As mentioned, modern concepts of reincarnation can be regarded as a distortion of the idea of eternal recurrence. In many cases this is true, although at the same time there are grounds for thinking that the idea of reincarnation has independent meaning. This meaning can be found only in certain allusions contained within Indian scripture, and a few authors of more recent mystical literature. However, before passing to the origin of the idea of reincarnation, or its independent meaning, we need to set forth in summary some of the better-known interpretations of the idea. In modern theosophy, of all Indian teachings, the cult of Krishna stands nearest, where man is regarded as a complex being, consisting of 7 bodies. The higher or the finer of these bodies, the 7th, the 6th and 5th are but principles contained within the 4th body. The 4th body is immortal and can reincarnate. This means that after the demise of the physical body, and after the successive deaths of the 2nd, the astral, and the 3rd, the mental, that sometimes live long after the death of the physical body. The 4th, the causal body, reincarnates into new being, born after a considerable lapse of time in entirely different and new conditions. According to theosophical authors, several hundred years and often 1,000, maybe even 2,000 years may elapse between one reincarnation and another. It must also be noted that the state of higher bodies, which are the astral, mental and causal, is very different at different stages of our evolution. In one who is but little developed, even the causal body is hardly more than a principle. It carries with it no recollections. A new reincarnation is as it were an independent life. It is only in comparatively high stages of development that the causal body may carry some dim recollections of a former life. The idea of reincarnation is connected with the idea of karma. Karma is understood as a chain of causes and effects, handed down from one life to another. However, into the abstract idea of karma is introduced the idea of retribution. Thus one's actions towards other people or beings in one life may provoke similar actions on the part of those or of others towards them in another life, or the same results may be the outcome of accidental causes. Hence the existence of cripples, or of people suffering painful and debilitating diseases is attributed in these teachings to the cruelties committed by these individuals in past lives. This is supposed to mean that their own suffering redeems suffering caused by them. In reality, however, in the idea of karma, suffering in itself has no redeeming power. A person must only understand something from suffering, and then change inwardly, or learn, and then begin to act in a different way from before. Then the new karma will, so to speak, wipe out the old and a person's suffering will cease. Other teachings that accept the idea of reincarnation differ from theosophy only formally, in certain detail. Thus European spiritualist teachings recognize the possibility of a quicker reincarnation, not after hundreds or thousands of years, but after a few years or even months. Modern Buddhism recognizes immediate reincarnation after death. In this last case, the reincarnation principle, in view of the fact that the existence of the soul is denied in modern Mahayana Buddhist sects, is the last thought of the dying person. In all these concepts of reincarnation there does not appear the slightest doubt regarding the correctness of the usual concept of time. It is this, therefore, above all, that deprives them of any force or significance. Time is taken as though it actually existed, and as conceived in ordinary thinking. It is taken at face value, without any limitation or without argument. The clock, the calendar, history, geological periods, astronomical cycles, all evoke no doubt in ordinary thought. Unfortunately, however, this old-fashioned time concept is in serious need of amendment. As pointed out in the sections of Tertium Organum, with regard to the idea of time, Eastern writings have gone much further than Western philosophy. European theosophists are fond of quoting words from the Vedanta about the eternal now and so on. However, between the eternal now and the calendar there are many intermediate stages, and it is just of these intermediate stages that they know nothing. A person dies, the cycle of life is closed, and even if the consciousness or the soul is preserved, time disappears. This means that there is no time for the soul. The soul finds itself in eternity. The next day after death, the next year, the next century do not exist for the soul. In eternity there can be no direction before or after. There cannot be before on one side in one direction and after on another side, but there must be both before and after on all sides. If the soul, that is the completed incarnation, is attracted anywhere, it can be attracted either into before or into after, along any great line at the point of intersection of which it finds itself. It follows that if reincarnation is possible, it is possible in any direction of eternity. Let's imagine that for the completed cycle of a lifetime, the great line is the line of the existence of the earth. Then the path of the soul can lie along this line in both directions, not necessarily in one direction only. The errors in our reckoning of time lie in the fact that when we think of time, we straighten out several curves simultaneously. The life of Homo sapien, the lives of the big organisms of human societies, the life of the whole of humanity, the life of the earth and the life of the sun, we take them all as parallel lines, and furthermore as commensurable lines capable of being expressed in the same units of measure. In reality this is impossible, for these curves are both incommensurable and not parallel. We ascribe to them this parallel quality only owing to the linear quality of our own thinking, and the linear quality of our concept of time. Difficult though it is for us to get rid of linear thinking and linear concepts, we nevertheless know enough to be able to understand that one time, measured by hours, days, geological periods, and light years does not exist. Therefore it is possible to speak of time for a completed circle only when this circle catches up again onto some larger circle. However, where it will catch on, to the right or to the left, before or after, is in no way predetermined. We overlook the fact that the predetermination presumed by us is exclusively based upon the imaginary analogy of the division of a small circle with the divisions of larger circles. This analogy is in turn built upon the supposition that a large circle must be divided into before and after at the point at which a small circle, a life or a soul happens to be on it or intersect it. Like the division of a small circle into before and after during the life of man, with the condition that the direction from before to after must be the same in both cases. It is clear that all these suppositions and analogies have no basis, and that the direction of the possible motion of the small circle in eternity is not in any way predetermined. It is possible to admit that this small circle, representing the soul or life, is subject to some kind of will that may attract it to one or other point of one or other large circle. However, these influences must come from various directions. One may not agree with all the deductions from the above arguments, but with a certain understanding of the matter it is no longer possible to dispute the impossibility of non-relative time. That is, a general time for everything that exists. In every given case, time is only the period of the existence of the subject in question. Even this alone makes it impossible to regard time after death in the same way as time before death. What therefore does the change we call death actually mean? As shown earlier, this change means that the time of the given individual ends. Time is for us no more. When the angel of the apocalypse says that there should be time no longer, it speaks of the death of humanity. All this makes clear the impossibility of an elementary treatment of the question, without an analysis of the problems of time. Reincarnation, if it exists at all, is a much more complicated phenomenon to understand that one must view with a certain grasp of the laws of time and eternity. The laws of time and eternity are illogical laws. They cannot be studied with the full rules of arithmetic. In order to understand them one must be able to think irrationally, and to see without facts. There is nothing more deceptive than facts, when we cannot have all the facts referring to the matter under discussion, and are forced to deal with accessible facts that instead of helping us, only distort our vision. How can we know that we have a sufficient quantity of facts for judgment in one direction or another, if we have no general plan of things and no known general system? Our scientific logic based upon facts are as deficient as the facts themselves. Therefore, in order to come to the laws of time and eternity we must start with the understanding of the state in which there is no time and no eternity opposed to one another. The eternal now is the state of Brahma, the state in which everything is everywhere and always, that is, in which every point of space touches every point of time, and which in symbolism is expressed by two intersecting triangles, the six-pointed Star of David. In this combination, time is three-dimensional, just as space is three-dimensional. But there is a great difference between the three-dimensional time of Brahma and ordinary human one-dimensional time, the line of time that comes from some unknown past and disappears into an undetermined future. This difference is not merely subjective. Man is in fact a one-dimensional being in relation to time. This means that in leaving the line of time, with our material demise, we do not immediately find ourselves in the state of Brahma, or the eternal now. There must be many intermediate states, and it is these intermediate states that we must examine. If we take as the point of departure, the proposition that the aim of the evolution of a human soul must be the attainment of the state of Brahma, of the eternal now, then the direction of our thought becomes clearer. From this point of view, a person, that is their soul, taking this word without sophistry, simply as the sense of our inner being, our inner existence of which the body is but a temporary receptacle, is a spark of Brahma. A seed of Brahma that is evolving and developing, that can attain the state of Brahma in the same way as the seed of an oak, by sprouting and growing it becomes an oak, and in its turn produces similar seeds. However, the analogy with an oak, a butterfly or any other living being, while demonstrating certain aspects of evolution correctly, obscures other sides of evolution. The analogy of an oak does not contain the eternal now, for this we must use a different analogy. Let's then compare Brahma to a river. As the source of the river, the spring or headwaters, the catchment area. He is the river itself, in all its stages, and also the sea into which the river flows. A drop of water in the river, having emerged from Brahma, wishes to return to Brahma, through transpiration and precipitation. Brahma is all. He is the river, the sea and the source, however to return to Brahma means to return to the source and a change in form, because otherwise if the drop is satisfied with a philosophical contemplation of its own possibilities, it may say that it is already in Brahma, because Brahma is all, and once the drop is in the river, it is in Brahma, and once it flows with the river towards the sea which is also Brahma, it approaches still nearer to merging with Brahma. But in this manner, it may be further and further removed from the source, and Brahma is the source. In order to unite with Brahma the drop must change, and this change will enable it to return to source. How can the drop return to source? Only by moving against the current of the river, against the current of time. The river flows in the direction of time. A return to source must therefore be a movement against time, a movement into the future, but into the past. This can only be accomplished through both changes of form and direction. Life as we know it, all the external and internal lifetimes of everything living, flow in one direction, from the past to the future. All the examples of evolution that we are able to find also proceed from the past towards the future. Of course it only appears to us to be so, and it appears so because we build our straight line of time from a multitude of curves such as the lives of men, the lives of people and the lives of races etc. For this purpose we artificially straighten out the curves. However, they remain straight only as long as we keep them in our mind, that is for as long as we deliberately see them as straight lines. As soon as we let our attention relax, as soon as we leave some of these lines and pass to others, or to the imaginary whole, they immediately become curves again, and thus destroy the entire picture of the whole. At the same time, as long as we see only one line of time, only one current and cannot see the parallel and the perpendicular currents, then we cannot see the reverse currents, which must undoubtedly exist. Because after all, time taken as a surface is not a flat surface, but must necessarily be a kind of spherical surface, on which the beginning of a line is also its end, and the end is its beginning. Let's go back now to the idea of the return to Brahma. Brahma has created the world, or the world has emerged, and is emerging from Brahma. 3 ways must lead to Brahma. Movement forward into the future. Movement backward into the past. Movement on one spot in the present. What then is movement into the future? It is the process of life, the process of reproducing oneself in others, the process of the growth and development of human groups, and of the whole of humanity. Whether there is evolution in this process or not, is a question open to dispute. What is clear though is the picture of the formation, of the existence and dying, of the big jelly-like organisms that fight each other and devour one another, that is of human societies, peoples, and races. What is the movement on one spot in the present? It is the movement along the circle of eternal recurrence, the repetition of life and the inner growth of the soul that becomes possible owing to that repetition. What is the movement backward into the past? It is the path of reincarnation, the path of change and of letting go, of the present and of the anticipated future, which if it is possible and exists, probably exists only in the form of reincarnation into the past. This is precisely the hidden esoteric side of the idea of reincarnation that is so completely forgotten, that even allusions to it are difficult to find. However, such allusions do exist. For that, we will look to the Old Testament. King David says in dying, "I go the way of all the earth," see 1 Kings, chapter 2, verse 2. Joshua says, "And behold, this day I am going the way of all the earth," Joshua, chapter 23, verse 14. What is the meaning of these words, and what does the way of the earth mean? The way of the earth is its past. I go the way of the earth can mean only one thing: I go into time, I go into the past. There are also other expressions. Aaron shall be gathered unto his people. God says this to Moses and Aaron in Mount Hor, see Numbers, chapter 20, verse 24. And die in the mount whither thou goest up, and be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother died in Mount Hor, and was gathered unto his people. God says this to Moses in Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 50. Then Abraham gave up the ghost, and died in a good old age, an old man, and full of years, and was gathered unto his people, see Genesis, chapter 25, verse 8. And Isaac gave up the ghost, and died, and was gathered unto his people, Genesis, chapter 35, verse 29. I am to be gathered unto my people, Jacob in Genesis, chapter 49, verse 29. And yielded up the ghost, and was gathered unto his people, Jacob in Genesis, chapter 49, verse 33. Behold therefore, I will gather thee unto thy fathers, and thou shalt be gathered into thy grave in peace, and thine eyes shall not see all the evil which I will bring upon this place. See 2 Kings, chapter 22, verse 20, where God says this to Josiah through the prophecies. The words to be gathered unto his people have exactly the same meaning as the words to go the way of the earth. Then the last passage that begins with the words, I shall gather thee unto thy fathers, even points out the benefit resulting from it, that is escape from the evil of the present. In the usual interpretation, these words are regarded either as indicating a life after death, in which one joins their ancestors who have passed there before, or in a more materialistic sense, as burial in the family tombs. However, the first, that is, the interpretation explaining these words as existence after death, does not withstand criticism, for it is well known that Judaism contained no idea of existence after death. Had there been such an idea, it would necessarily have been expounded and interpreted in the Bible. Neither does the second explanation, that is burial in family tombs, answer all the indications mentioned, for the same words refer to Aaron and to Moses, who died and were buried in the open desert. What is particularly important, the expressions to go the way of the earth and to be gathered into one's fathers, or to be gathered unto one's people, neither refer to ordinary men or women. Those expressions are used in relation to very few, to patriarchs, prophets, and to leaders of the people. This points to the hidden meaning and aim of reincarnation into the past.